Welcome to the Explainer, everyone. Today, we're basically treating you like an architect. Our mission? To help you build an absolutely bulletproof financial model right from the ground up. Whether you're evaluating a massive multi-million-dollar project, mapping out a corporate budget, or just trying to nail down your own retirement schedule, Excel is your ultimate construction site. But a model is really only as strong as the formulas holding it together. So today, we're going to walk through the exact blueprint financial pros use to construct reliable, dynamic, and totally error-free spreadsheets.
Okay, let's dive right into this blueprint. First up, core tools for financial modeling. Then, smarter lookups with index match. Next, scenario analysis and goal seek. And finally, bulletproofing against common errors.
Section 1. Core tools for financial modeling. Laying the foundation. Listen, every solid structure absolutely needs a strong foundation. And in Excel financial modeling, that foundation really starts with a deep understanding of how to accurately calculate the time value of money and debt amortization. If your fundamental loan and return calculations are off, the entire building leans. So let's bring in the big three loan functions to paint a complete picture of a loan's journey. First up, we've got PMT. This calculates your total fixed payment, like for a mortgage, for example. Next is its partner, PPMT, which isolates the exact amount paying down your actual principal debt. And finally, IPMT calculates the interest cost for that specific period. The golden rule you absolutely have to remember here is that for any single period, what you pay in principal plus your interest is always going to perfectly equal your total PMT. When we chart these out over a 30-year term, like your standard mortgage, we get this fascinating visualization of exactly how your money works over time. Notice how the interest portion starts out absolutely massive in month 1. But watch what happens as time marches on. The interest shrinks and that principal portion grows. Right there in the middle, that's our crossover point. That is where your principal payment finally outpaces your interest payment. Visually mapping this out, it's a total game changer for financial planning because it tangibly proves why making extra payments early on saves you so much money down the line. Now, moving from loans over to investments, we really have to talk about evaluating returns. When evaluating the returns of complex investments, industry experts, like the folks at Warren and Selbert, rely heavily on XIRR. Why? Well, standard IRR rigidly assumes that all time periods between cash flows are exactly the same. But let's be real, in the real world, they almost never are. That X in XIRR handles the exact number of calendar days between your cash flows. This is incredibly crucial for structures like partnership flips in the renewable energy sector, where an investment made on the first of the month yields a wildly different return than one made on the last day.
Let's move over to valuation and see how this builds. Just like IRR has XIRR, the standard net present value function has a much smarter sibling, XNPV. Picture standard NPV. It just assumes your cash flows arrive in these perfectly equal, neat little intervals, but then XNPV swoops in with absolute precision. Unlike regular NPV, XNPV ties every single cash flow to a specific real-world calendar date. It brings all those future cash flows back to the exact date of your first cash flow, discounting them based on a precise 365-day year. So you might be wondering, why go through all the trouble of using XNPV instead of just standard NPV? Because in corporate finance, precision is literally everything. Using standard NPV instead of XNPV could undervalue a security by tens of thousands of dollars, simply because of a timing difference. Think about it. If the time between your start date and your first cash flow is only 6 months, regular NPV might mistakenly treat it as a full year. That means it aggressively over-discounts it, entirely throwing off your valuation.
Section 2. Smarter lookups with index match. Wiring the model.
Now that our mathematical foundation is poured, we need to wire the data together across our model. Models are built on assumptions and massive data tables, right? So we need a highly reliable way to pull the exact right data into the right cells. For this, we use the absolute gold standard for lookups. While VLOOKUP might be the most famous Excel function out there, combining index with match creates a far more resilient and powerful lookup matrix. Think of them like a tag team. First, match acts as the scout, scanning a row or column to find the relative numeric position of your target, basically telling you, hey, it's in the 5th row. Then it hands that number over to index, the retriever, which acts like a map coordinate system to pull the exact value sitting right there in that 5th row of your return range.
Here is exactly where index match really flexes its superpowers. Look, VLOOKUP is fragile. It can only look right, and if you insert a new column into your spreadsheet, the whole thing breaks because its column index is hard-coded. Index match, however, dynamically selects both ranges independently.
This means it can look left, and crucially, it survives structural changes to your spreadsheet without breaking a sweat. Plus, for those of you working with massive financial datasets, Index Match actually processes significantly faster on tables with 50,000 or more rows. Why? Because it only holds the specific columns you need in memory, not the entire giant table. Section 3, Scenario Analysis and Goal Seek, Stress Testing the Structure. All right, our model is wired and communicating flawlessly. Now it's time to stress test it. A static financial model just isn't very useful to us. We need to run different scenarios, best case, base case, worst case, and sometimes we need to reverse engineer our desired outcomes to figure out exactly what it takes to get there. This is where we bring in the heavy machinery. First, you toggle your entire model between different sets of assumptions using the choose function. Next, you define your ultimate financial target. And finally, using the Goal Seek tool, Excel acts like a literal crystal ball. It works its magic, automatically adjusting your inputs over and over again in the background until it finds the exact number required to hit your target outcome.
For example, let's say you want to retire with exactly $1 million. You know you have 30 years and you expect a 5% interest rate. You do not have to manually guess and check your annual savings. You just open GoalSeek, set your total savings cell to $1 million, and tell it to change your annual contribution cell. Instantly, GoalSeek tells us $15,051.44. That is the exact annual contribution you need to make to hit that $1 million goal. It's just an incredibly powerful tool for quick, precision forecasting.
Section 4, Bulletproofing against common errors, putting up the drywall. For our final construction phase, we have to fortify the model against those inevitable user mistakes, messy data imports, and broken links. Because a model that crashes when someone accidentally types a letter instead of a number, it's simply not finished. Now, let's be honest, seeing a spreadsheet light up with unexpected ref errors induces sheer cold sweat panic for a lot of us. But the first mindset shift is realizing that errors aren't crashes. They're just Excel trying to communicate with you. When you see a hashtag error, Excel is actually trying to help. Understanding this translation is the key to swift troubleshooting. For instance, the value error usually just means you've mixed text with numbers, like trying to calculate a profit margin but accidentally referencing a cell that says TBD instead of an actual dollar amount. Think of these specific antidotes as your ultimate security guards. By pairing the exact error with its specific solution, your model remains clean, functional, and professional. First up, if you're calculating revenue growth, a blank period will give you a div/0 error. The antidote? Simply wrap your math in an if error or if function so it cleanly displays a 0 or a custom message. Next, if someone deletes a linked sheet and you get that terrifying ref error, don't panic. Just use the trace precedence auditing tool to follow the dashed lines directly to the broken link. And if your index match lookup returns an NA, it means your target value isn't there, so you just need to check for hidden spaces or typos in your source data. So I'll leave you with this final thought. How much time, and let's be real, money, is a single unhandled ref error or an inaccurate NPV calculation costing your company right now? When you use standard formatting, rigorous data validation, and these incredibly precise Excel formulas, you completely eliminate the guesswork. Apply this master builder's blueprint to your own spreadsheets today, and you're going to transform your financial models from fragile, stressful documents into unbreakable, bulletproof analytical tools. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy modeling.